Everyone else who gets reborn becomes a tycoon, but I was reborn back to the 1960s, so poor that I had even gambled away the cloth coupon for making my daughter new clothes for the new year. My wife was preparing to take me and our child with her in death. I had finally managed to get a nest of wild rabbits to trade for grain and make amends, when the enemy who had ruined my family came knocking. The moment I opened my eyes, I felt like my whole body had been hit by a truck. No, that's not right. I really was hit by a truck. My last memory was of the instant a large truck came crashing straight at me. But now what I saw was a shabby thatched hut. Beneath me a hard earthen Kong, and a disheveled woman with tear-streaked cheeks curled up in the corner. Lu Xiuyun, my wife. The woman who, in my memory, had been dead for 30 years. Smack. A loud slap landed on my face, burning with pain. Beast. She cursed through gritted teeth, yanking over her clothes and throwing them on before storming out and slamming the door behind her. I sat there stunned on the Kong, my mind feeling like it had exploded. Everything from my previous life came flooding back. I had been a degenerate gambler in my youth, buried in debt, forcing my wife to sell off her dowry. In the end, I even signed an agreement with someone to sell her off into the deep mountains. She fell into despair and bought rat poison, wrapping it into dumplings, planning for the three of us to die together. In the end, she and our daughter both died, and I was the only one left alive. Later, I turned over a new leaf, learned to hunt and trade mountain goods, and decades later became a boss worth hundreds of millions. But so what? My wife and child were gone. Reborn. My voice trembled. This was the 1960s, the period just before everything went wrong. I wiped away my tears hard. It won't happen again. This time, I will make sure the two of them live a good life. Walking out of the house, I saw Lu Xiuyun sitting on a wooden stool in the yard, mechanically scrubbing clothes. Her whole being giving off an air of having lost all will to live. Xiuyun, I cleared my throat. Autumn harvest is coming soon, so I'll go look around the fields and see if I can pick up some potatoes to bring back. I reached out, wanting to take the washboard from her hands. You rest, I'll do the washing. She suddenly yanked the washboard back, her eyes full of resentment. I don't need your fake kindness. Did you ever care about me before? Her words stabbed my heart like knives. No matter how you put it, all she felt toward me now was wariness. We were husband and wife in name only, more like enemies. This layer of ice wouldn't melt overnight. It would take time to warm it away. I know you don't believe me. I took a deep breath, but this time I truly know I was wrong. From now on, we'll support this family together. Xiuyun, can you give me one more chance? She gave a bitter smile. There's nothing left in this house for you to squander. I saved that little bit of money and those cloth coupons for a full 2 years, just wanting to get the child a new set of clothes. And you gambled it all away. You can still call yourself human? By the time she finished speaking, even her voice was trembling. I had no answer. Yeah, even snatching away the money for making clothes for my daughter to use for gambling. What I, Jianguo, did in my past life was truly inhuman. Wife, from today on, I promise I'll let the two of you live a good life. The cloth coupons, I'll definitely get them back for you. After saying that, I went to the storage room, took a basket and a burlap sack, and strode toward the fields. Behind me, Lu Xiuyun stared blankly at my back. In her memory, me taking the initiative to go out and work was something she had never seen in 8 lifetimes. She was still in a daze when a knock came from outside the courtyard gate. Sister-in-law Du, I bought back the rat poison you asked me to get. Do you still want it? Lu Xiuyun clenched her hands and took a deep breath. Yes. I'll get you the money. She had originally wanted to drag me into death with her, but the things I had just said lingered in her mind. She thought of our daughter, a child only 4.5 years old, getting up before dawn every day to help cut pig grass. Her only hope was to have a new set of clothes for the new year. Now, even that hope was gone. Child, your mother has wronged you. She wiped away her tears and made up her mind. Meanwhile, I had already reached the commune's fields. Picking potatoes was an old tradition. Potatoes grow underground, and after the first few rounds of harvesting, there were always some small ones left behind in the field. The commune tacitly allowed individuals to go pick them up. But those potatoes were all small, the biggest no larger than an egg. Relying on that alone to fill our stomachs wasn't enough. To turn things around, we still had to depend on hunting and digging up mountain produce. At the west end of the village, next to a small river, the villagers now all thought it was too far and would rather fetch water from the closer Shaoyang River. But I knew that this small river would later be designated a nature reserve, and there were quite a few rare medicinal herbs by the river. Right now, this was a real chance for me to turn things around. I was just thinking about how to go check out the riverbank when I spotted a familiar face at a glance. My father, Du Daqiang, together with my mother, Su Xiaomei, and my sister-in-law, was digging potatoes in the field. I jogged over. Dad, lend me a hoe. I'll dig some too. Who would have thought that the moment my father looked up and saw it was me, he suddenly grabbed a shovel and swung it at me. I was so frightened I shuddered and hurriedly dodged aside. Dad, what are you doing? What am I doing? He gripped the shovel, his hands trembling. Let me ask you, did you go gambling again last night and lose all the money for making clothes for the child? I instantly lost my temper. This was the evil I had brought on myself. With a thud, I dropped to my knees in the mud and kowtowed 3 times heavily. Dad, I know I was wrong. I'll never gamble again. Please give me one more chance. I promise I'll change. The potatoes in the field are almost all going to be picked clean. Even if you want to break my legs, can you wait a couple of days first? Seeing me kneel in public, my father was stunned. My mother quickly stepped forward to persuade him. Child's father, I think the boy really knows he was wrong this time. Give him another chance, will you? Logically speaking, you already split off and started your own household long ago, so whether you lived or died, you should bear it yourself. My father glared at me, and in the end lowered the shovel in his hand and tossed me a hoe. But a person has to have a conscience. If you don't want a good life for yourself, don't drive your wife and child into a dead end. Don't worry, Mom and Dad. I promise I won't make trouble again or bring shame on you anymore. After saying that, I gripped the hoe and headed straight for the potato field by the small river. No one in the village thought much of me, a good-for-nothing loafer, and not a single person who did honest work was willing to pay me any mind. I was happy to have the peace and quiet. I bent my head and dug for a while, turning up a few potatoes and 2 dandelion plants that could promote urination. Sure enough, this place had good stuff. Suddenly, my eyes lit up, a patch of dry heart-shaped leaves. That shape, could it be fleeceflower root? If this stuff was of good quality, it could sell for several dozen yuan. I squatted down and dug hard. I didn't dig up any fleeceflower root, but I did pick up quite a few more potatoes, weighing an estimated 7 or 8 jin. Just as I kept digging downward, the hoe suddenly stopped short. With another scrape, I uncovered an opening, and inside, 2 dark little eyes were staring right at me. Wild rabbits. I warily swept my gaze around, and fortunately no one had noticed. A cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. If they were adult rabbits, they would have run off long ago. But these were clearly young cubs that had only been born not long ago, still staring blankly in a daze. I didn't dare make a sound. With something like this, whoever sees it gets a share. Once people spot them, a crowd will divide them up, and not even a rabbit leg will be left. The fleeceflower root wasn't going anywhere. I could come dig it up next time. The rabbits had to be taken away first. I dumped the potatoes on the ground and carefully lifted the baby rabbits out and put them into the burlap sack. I counted them, 6. This was quite a harvest. I returned the hoe to my father and hurried off with the burlap sack on my back. When my father saw that I was calling it a day so soon, he got so angry that he spat on the ground. This beast, he can't hold out after only working for such a short while. Once I was out of everyone's sight, I opened the sack again to take another look. 6 baby rabbits. They don't have much meat right now, but wild rabbits grow fast. Feed them a couple handfuls of grass every day, and in a month they'll be plump and chubby. Do Jianguo. A shout suddenly came from behind me. I hurriedly tightened the mouth of the sack and turned around to look. A round, pudgy fat man was walking toward me. Lu Chunin, the village chief's son, and my card buddy from my previous life. Unlike the others, he wasn't really bad by nature, and he would occasionally help me out, but unfortunately he was ruined by gambling too. I just went to your house to look for you, and your wife chased me out. He patted my arm. Come to my place tonight to play cards. Let's play a couple of high-stakes rounds. My dad went to town, and my second brother still has some porn pictures over there. Want to check them out together? Porn pictures, meaning the hand-drawn kind. I shook my head. You can look by yourself. I'm not going to the card game. Just as I was about to leave, I suddenly stopped. Lu Chunin, do you want rabbits? He froze for a moment. Huh, you have rabbits? I untied the sack and held it out in front of him. You really do. His eyes lit up, and he licked his lips. Spicy rabbit heads with rice are the best. Where did you get them? Caught them myself. Quit kidding me. You, with your little bit of skill? Believe it or not. Do you want them or not? Yes. Of course I do. No matter how small a rabbit is, it's still meat. How do you plan to sell them? I did the math. I'll sell you 4 of them in exchange for 2 jin of white flour. You're asking an outrageous price. He shook his head repeatedly. Such tiny little rabbits in exchange for white flour? If my dad finds out, he'll beat me to death. At most I'll trade you 1 jin of cornmeal. Fine, but add a few pieces of pork cracklings too. My wife's health is too weak and she's short on nutrition. I need to get her some greasy food to build her up. Lu Chunin gritted his teeth. Fine, but only enough for 1 meal. After exchanging the goods at his house, he still wouldn't give up. You're really not coming to play cards tonight? No. Find someone else for cards from now on. I need to earn money properly and support my wife and child. Listen to you acting capable. He sneered. Who doesn't know what kind of person you, Jianguo, are? Didn't your wife always used to be the one taking care of you instead? Hurry up. If you don't come, we can only play Do Lao Kai, and it's boring as hell. He reached out to grab me, but I shook him off in one motion. I said I'm not going, so I'm not going. Carrying the cornmeal and pork cracklings, I hurried home. Pushing open the courtyard gate, I held up the bag, my face full of pride. Wife, come see what good stuff I brought back for you. But I never expected that when Lu Shiyin saw these things. Not only was she not happy in the slightest, she was trembling with anger instead. You still had money left after gambling yesterday? The despair in her eyes made my heart skip a beat. Wife, you've misunderstood. I quickly explained. I traded for these things with Lu Chunin. I didn't spend any money. What did you trade for them? I happened to catch a nest of wild rabbits while digging potatoes in the field just now. 6 of them. I gave Lu Chunin 4 of them in exchange for cornmeal and pork cracklings. You've been exhausted every day lately and still haven't had anything good to eat, so I thought I'd get some pork cracklings to give you a little nourishment. I lifted the basket again. These potatoes are small, but they can serve as food. In the next few days I'll go wander around the mountain again. If I catch any wild game and trade it for money, I guarantee you two will get to eat big potatoes. Lu Xiaoyun stood there stunned, dazed for quite a while. She reached out to touch those potatoes, then suddenly felt the rat poison still clenched in her pocket and hurriedly pulled her hand back. Looking at the small potatoes in the basket, her nose stung. Even these tiny potatoes that nobody wanted, her own family had hardly ever properly eaten a few times. She couldn't remember how many times. Her daughter had stared eagerly at that little bit of potatoes, her eyes full of longing, yet she hadn't even dared boil a single one for her daughter. That was life-saving food. Wife, don't cry. I panicked and wanted to wipe away her tears, but when I saw that my fingers were caked with dirt, I pulled my hand back. You must be starving. I'll go cook the pork cracklings for you right now. I carried the ingredients into the kitchen. The 2 little rabbits should be kept alive for now. There was only a few liang of meat on them, so eating them would be a waste. But we couldn't skimp on the pork cracklings and cornmeal. I trust my own ability. It won't be hard to get food from now on. Right now, the most important thing is to help my wife regain some nutrition. I poured half a bowl of pork cracklings into the pan. I sliced the potatoes thin and stir-fried them together, then kneaded a few cornmeal buns and set them to steam. About half an hour later, the meal was served on the table. The aroma of the pork cracklings went straight to the nose, and Lu Xiaoyun couldn't help swallowing. The last time she had eaten lard was half a year ago, during the new year. She stared fixedly at that bowl of pork cracklings, unwilling to look away even for a moment. I said, Wife, hurry and eat. I made all this for you. But she pushed the bowl aside, put it in the cupboard first. And when the child comes back from my parents' house, heat it up for her. You eat first. If the food is gone, I'll get more. The child is still young. She'll have plenty of chances to eat good things in the future. She shook her head and glanced at me indifferently. This was bought with the money meant for the child's New Year clothes. She's been looking forward to that outfit for years. Now that hope is gone, we have to use something else to comfort her. Her words were like knives, stabbing straight into my heart. I wished I could slap myself twice. Ever since our daughter was born, she hasn't had a single good day. The best meal she had in my previous life was actually meat dumplings mixed with rat poison. Wife, give me one more chance. I swear I'll live properly from now on. Du Jianguo, how many times have you said that already? When has it ever not been the same? Making promises one moment and going gambling the next. This time is different. I was just about to explain when a noise suddenly came from the courtyard gate. Brother Jianjun, you home? Come on, let's go play cards. The moment she heard that voice, Lu Xiaoyun's face turned cold. The front gate was pushed open, and a loafing hooligan swaggered in with a foxtail grass stem in the corner of his mouth, barging straight into the house. The moment he entered, his eyes lit up, staring fixedly at the pork cracklings on the table. Yo, Brother Jianjun, living better today, huh? Get me another pair of chopsticks, and we'll eat before going to play cards. I stared coldly at the man in front of me. Li Erden. Back then, when I fell for Lu Xiaoyun and was determined to marry her, it was this Li Erden who came up with the rotten idea. Have someone block her way, and I'd stage a hero saving the beauty act. In all these years since, he has used this against me more than once. If I displeased him in the slightest, he would threaten to tell Lu Xiaoyun what happened back then. I was afraid. I was afraid that after learning the truth, Lu Xiaoyun would leave me. So time and again, he dragged me into gambling games, and I sank deeper and deeper until there was no redemption. It could be said that Li Erden was the true culprit who tore this family apart. Thinking of this, I said coldly, What are you doing here? Didn't I already tell Lu Chunin that I wasn't going to tonight's card game? Hearing this, Li Erden gave a sinister grin, then turned to Lu Xiaoyun and said in a flippant tone, "Sister-in-law, don't just stand there. Brother Jianjun and I will eat a couple of bites first. Since Brother Jianjun isn't willing, go get me a pair of chopsticks." Lu Xiaoyun turned pale with anger. She had wanted to shout at Li Erden to get out, but then she remembered the past. Du Jianguo treated Li Erden like a master. And if she dared to talk back to Li Erden by even one sentence, Du Jianguo would hit her. She wasn't afraid of being beaten. She was only afraid that she wouldn't live long enough to poison Du Jianguo one day, so she could only grit her teeth and turn to leave. Seeing Lu Xiaoyun leave, Li Erden patted the chair beside him and said flatly, "Sit, Brother Jianjun. There's something I need to talk to you about." Du Jianguo stared coldly at the man in front of him. "If you have something to say it." Li Erden was momentarily taken aback by his expression, but didn't take it to heart and said with a smile, "Then I'll say it. Brother Jianjun, I, Li Erden, haven't treated you badly, have I? Back then, when you married sister-in-law, my help had a lot to do with it. I put together tonight's card game, and I can understand you not giving Lu Chunin face. But if you won't even come to a game hosted by me, a friend who helped you get a wife, isn't that a bit unreasonable?" Du Jianguo said with a cold face. "Last night you won more than 10 yuan from me, and you even took all my family's cloth coupons. Still not enough for you? Do you have to ruin my family before you'll stop? Leave. I absolutely won't go to tonight's card game." This Li Erden was dead set on screwing him over. It's true that 9 out of 10 gamblers lose, but it's rare to get butchered by them like this every single day. In his previous life, Du Jianguo couldn't figure it out, but now he finally understood. Most likely, he had set a trap for him, colluding with others to deliberately mess with him. Li Erden narrowed his eyes, his tone threatening. "Brother Jianjun, you lost at last night's card game. That was just because luck wasn't on your side. That's only temporary. If you try harder tonight, maybe you'll win it back. But you can't keep making me lose face again and again, can you?" His tone was light, but full of threat. "Back then I could help you marry sister-in-law, and now I can naturally make this woman leave you too. You don't want sister-in-law to learn the truth about what happened back then, do you? Tonight, get the money, REA." Ow, fuck. Before he could finish his threat, a sharp pain suddenly shot through his chest. Not knowing when, Du Jianguo had grabbed the broom in the room and smashed it hard against his chest. With that one blow, Li Erden hurt so badly he couldn't straighten his back. "Are you fucking crazy?" Li Erden's eyes went wide as he glared at Du Jianguo through gritted teeth. "You dare fucking hit me? If you've got the guts, hit me again." No sooner had he spoken than Du Jianguo's broom lashed over again. In his previous life, he had let Li Erden lord it over him and bully him, muddle-headedly ruining his entire life. Now that he had been reborn, how could he still be as spineless as he was back then? Rather than bowing and scraping to beg Li Erden to keep the secret, it was better to toughen up for once and fight for a decent life for his wife and daughter. "Damn it, Du Jianguo, you've really grown wings now. I'll fucking kill you." Li Erden had been a thug for years and really did have a vicious streak. Seeing this, he lunged straight at him and started grappling with Du Jianguo. But a street punk was still just an undisciplined brawler, with no method to his punches and kicks. After Lu Xiaoyun died in his previous life, Du Jianguo had learned his lesson and specifically apprenticed himself to an old master to learn martial arts. Although he now had a different body, his understanding of fighting techniques remained, just a little rusty, but more than enough to deal with Li Erden. Li Erden could throw all his strength into landing one punch on Du Jianguo, and Du Jianguo could return 10 palm strikes with a backhand. Before long, Li Erden completely lost his nerve, shocked and terrified inside. What the hell had gotten into this guy today? How was he this fierce? He hurriedly shouted, "I'm not fighting you anymore. Du Jianguo, just you wait. Don't let me catch an opportunity, or you're dead. I'm remembering this grudge." Seizing a gap, Li Erden pulled away from Du Jianguo and limped out of the courtyard. Just then, Lu Xiaoyun came back from the kitchen and ran into this scene. She froze on the spot and asked instinctively, "You too? What happened?" Du Jianguo raised a hand to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. In a firm voice, "Honey, I've cut ties with Li Erden. From today on, I'll live a good life with you." Lu Xiaoyun let out a cold laugh after hearing this and said, "Du Jianguo, cut this self-pity act in front of me. I won't fall for it again this time, and don't think you can swindle a single cent from me." She instinctively assumed Du Jianguo and Li Erden were putting on a show, wanting to see whether she had sold off all the dowry in her hands. After all, with the cowardly way Du Jianguo usually was, how would he dare fall out with Li Erden? Du Jianguo sighed. "Honey, I know you don't believe me right now, but give me a chance. Let me try for a few days, and then judge me by how I behave. He walked to the table and placed a bowl of pork cracklings with corn buns in front of Lu Xiaoyun. Eat. Lu Xiaoyun said nothing. Seeing this, Du Jianguo came up with an idea and said, if you don't eat now, I'll take it over to Li Erden and apologize to him. Lu Xiaoyun shot Du Jianguo a glare, her hand instinctively reaching for the rat poison in her pocket, and gritted out. There's a little badger oil left in the cabinet. Put some on your wounds yourself. With that, Lu Xiaoyun took the bowl and left. Du Jianguo smiled as he watched her back. Pork cracklings are highly nourishing, far better than chicken or eggs. In times like these, if honored guests came to the door, people would be willing to serve eggs and chicken. But pork cracklings were often something people couldn't bear to part with, because this stuff could really stave off hunger and put some flesh on your bones. The moment Lu Xiaoyun took a bite, her mouth burst with rich, overflowing lard fragrance. She greedily swallowed that mouthful of pork cracklings, then hurriedly picked out a few more pieces and wrapped them in the corn bun. Chewing ravenously, she hadn't had the slightest bit of grease for several months. All these movements were instinctive. Her body was subconsciously urging her to take in more fat, so she could endure these hard days. Only after gnawing the corn bun in her hand, completely clean, did Lu Xiaoyun feel half full. She quickly pushed the bowl of pork cracklings farther away, not daring to look at it any longer for fear she wouldn't be able to stop herself from reaching out again. Sitting by the bed, with the smell of meat still lingering around her nose, the soft words Du Jianguo had spoken earlier surfaced again in her mind. Had he really reformed? Was he really willing to stay by her side and live a good life together? Most likely, it was probably just more sweet talk. Lu Xiaoyun sighed softly, not really believing Du Jianguo. Perhaps this was a trick Du Jianguo was using to get money out of her. But this brief bit of warmth was the only trace of tenderness she had ever felt from him. Carrying the bowl, she walked to the main room and set the pork cracklings and corn buns in front of Du Jianguo. Honey, why aren't you eating anymore? Du Jianguo looked up and asked. I've eaten enough. I saved a portion for the child, and you can eat the rest. Looking at the pork cracklings in front of him, Du Jianguo actually didn't care that much for them. In these present circumstances they were precious, but in the future era he was familiar with, they were already something common as dirt. In the future era, farm pigs were everywhere, and pork cracklings had instead become cheap leftovers that nobody wanted. In his previous life he had no idea how much of it he had eaten. But back in the 1960s, this was good stuff for getting some grease into your diet, so it couldn't be wasted. Thinking of this, Du Jianguo quickly polished off every last bit of the grease with the corn bun. Afterward, he picked up the bowl, planning to take it to the kitchen to wash. But the moment he pushed open the kitchen door, his whole body froze on the spot, his eyes going wide. In the kitchen stood a large wooden tub, with hot water in it giving off curling steam, and Lu Xiaoyun was sitting in the tub. Droplets of moisture beaded in the air as she carefully wiped the skin on her arm with her fair hand. The water in the tub barely covered her chest. As ripples spread with her movements, her soft breasts swayed gently as well. Du Jianguo stared a little dazedly, never having imagined that his own wife's skin could be so fair and tender. Although he had long known that Lu Xiaoyun came from a wealthy family, unlike the village women who worked farm labor all year round, only now, seeing her this closely, did he realize that she must have secretly taken good care of herself in daily life to have such fine skin. Seeing Du Jianguo staring fixedly at her, Lu Xiaoyun frowned and said, If you're coming in, then come in and close the door. All the heat is escaping. Oh. Only then did Du Jianguo come back to his senses. With the flustered guilt of someone caught doing something shameful, he nodded, not forgetting why he had come to the kitchen in the first place. His steps somewhat mechanical, he walked to the iron pot, picked up a rag, and began scrubbing the bowls and chopsticks. In the kitchen, one person bathed in the wooden tub while the other washed dishes by the stove. Though Lu Xiaoyun felt somewhat uncomfortable, she did not dwell on it too much. After all, the two were husband and wife in every proper sense. And even if she disliked Du Jianguo at the moment, they had long since done what married couples do countless times, so why would she fear being seen naked? What truly surprised her was that Du Jianguo would actually take the initiative to wash dishes. If Du Jianguo only wanted to swindle some money from her, there was no need for him to go this far, even being willing to do meticulous work like washing dishes. Du Jianguo absent-mindedly scrubbed the bowls and chopsticks, but his eyes could not help darting toward the wooden tub again and again. Ever since Lu Xiaoyun drank poison and killed herself in his previous life, he had never remarried, and as he grew older, his thoughts in that regard had completely faded. For decades he had not touched another woman. He had thought he had long trained his heart to be still as water, but now he understood that he simply had not met anyone who could move him. Now, looking at the living, breathing Lu Xiaoyun again, Du Jianguo felt that masculine vigor within him surge back once more. "Wife, let me help wash your back." Du Jianguo spoke almost instinctively. Lu Xiaoyun froze for a moment, sitting stiffly in the wooden tub, truly unable to figure out what Du Jianguo was up to. After pondering for a while, she finally responded with some hesitation. "Tianchen, all right, you can do it. Be gentle." With his wife's consent, Du Jianguo took the towel and walked behind Lu Xiaoyun, his hands still trembling somewhat uncontrollably. Just as he was about to touch her skin, his gaze fell on her back, and his whole body suddenly stiffened. Across that fair skin were interlacing blue and purple bruises, and there were even several faint brown bite marks visible, all traces left by his bastard behavior in his previous life. He recalled how, in the past, when Lu Xiaoyun had been unwilling to sleep with him, he would beat and curse her. Those absurd acts now pierced his heart like needles, and guilt instantly overwhelmed all his other thoughts. Du Jianguo steadied himself and properly helped Lu Xiaoyun finish washing her back. Without saying another word, he turned and left the kitchen. Watching his departing back, Lu Xiaoyun instead felt somewhat stunned. She had originally thought Du Jianguo was up to some crooked idea again, but she had not expected that he truly only helped wash her back calmly and steadily, without the slightest improper move. After washing up, pouring out the bathwater, Lu Xiaoyun returned to the main room. As soon as she entered, she saw Du Jianguo fiddling with several wooden sticks, with a basket beside him. One of the wooden sticks had already been lit. Lu Xiaoyun asked, "Where are you going?" Lighting a wooden stick, he was clearly planning to go out at night. But in this pitch-dark night, where could he possibly be going? Could it be that he was going to hang around gambling again? Lu Xiaoyun's brows gradually furrowed. Du Jianguo smiled and put all the firewood into the basket. "I want to go take a look. See if I can run into another rabbit nest and keep trading for pork cracklings for you." Hearing this, not only was Lu Xiaoyun not pleased, she instead frowned and retorted, "You were already incredibly lucky to run into one rabbit nest. How could there be a second one? If you really want to bring something home, you'd be better off properly following the villagers to pick up potatoes. The heavy snow is about to seal off the mountain, and the child should be brought back from your parents' home too. If we don't have any rations, how are we supposed to get through this winter?" Worry weighed on Lu Xiaoyun's heart, and she couldn't help letting out a sigh. Seeing how troubled she looked, Du Jianguo thought for a moment before saying, "Don't worry, wife. I'll definitely get all the rations ready before the heavy snow seals off the mountain." With that, he slung on the gear he had already packed and turned to walk out the door. Watching Du Jianguo's departing figure, Lu Xiaoyun shook her head in disappointment. In her view, Du Jianguo's words were nothing but a pipe dream. How could she really count on him to get enough food to last through the winter? Go dig up that fleece flower root at night. After weighing it over again and again, Du Jianguo felt this was the safest approach. If he waited until daytime, the fields would surely be full of villagers working. And if he dug up the fleece flower root then, the risk of being seen would be far too great. Although no one had discovered him raiding the rabbit nest this morning, who could guarantee he'd have the same luck a second or third time? Thinking it over that way, sneaking out at night was still safer. Although it was pitch dark right now and he didn't have a flashlight, no one was so bored as to go out into the wild in the middle of the night for romance. Besides, he had already found the leaves of the fleece flower root, and by all logic, the parent plant was most likely nearby. As long as he could dig up this fleece flower root, the urgent problem of the family's winter food shortage could be solved. With that thought, Du Jianguo's steps grew steadier, and he somehow felt a new surge of strength. Following his memory from daytime, Du Jianguo quickly found the place where he had discovered the fleece flower root leaves earlier. And along the way he also saw that rabbit hole. When he left in the morning, he had deliberately covered the entrance with dry grass. But now that pile of grass had been scratched into a mess. Clearly the mother rabbit had come back after going out to forage. If that mother rabbit knew that of her 4 kits, for had long since been coated with seasoning and ended up in Lu Chunan's stomach, leaving only 2 still alive, how heartbroken would she be? Don't blame me for being ruthless. The weak are prey to the strong. I've already left you 2 to carry on. If only I could use those 2 baby rabbits to lure the mother rabbit back. An adult mother rabbit weighs at least 2 or 3 gene. If he took it to trade, he could at the very least get several gene of cornmeal, enough to feed the family for some time. Unfortunately, although the mother rabbit protected her young, she wasn't to the point of daring to risk her life against a person. Wanting to lure her back with just 2 baby rabbits was obviously unrealistic. Du Jianguo pushed that thought aside and turned his attention back to searching for the fleece flower root, no longer letting himself be distracted. Gripping the hoe, He dug in places where the soil was loose. These were the growing conditions fleeceflower root preferred. The hoe struck the earth, but he couldn't even find the fleeceflower root leaves anymore. Still, every now and then he could turn up a few egg-sized potatoes from the clods of dirt. He didn't disdain them at all, and casually picked them up and stuffed them into the basket. In these years of food shortage, food was always a good thing. One extra bite was one extra bite, and no one would ever think their family's stored food was too much. While keeping an eye on what was happening in the soil, he quickened his pace. Suddenly, with one swing of the hoe, it felt like he had hit something hard. Jianguo's heart stirred. He gently brushed away the top layer of soil with the hoe, and after digging out a pit that was about deep enough, he brought the lit wooden stick closer and shone the firelight into it. His eyes suddenly lit up. The Polygonum multiflorum he had been longing for was lying right there in the pit. He had finally found it. Jianguo immediately softened his movements and even switched from the hoe to his hands, carefully scraping away the soil around the Polygonum multiflorum, afraid of breaking its roots and rhizome. Only after clearing the soil around the root system did he slowly pull the whole plant intact from the ground, gripping it in his hand as a relieved smile finally appeared on his face. Although this Polygonum multiflorum was pitch black and looked like a big potato, it was a treasure passed down from the ancestors with extremely high medicinal value. Especially this kind of all-natural wild Polygonum multiflorum. The purchase price offered by pharmacies had always been quite high. Jianguo held the Polygonum multiflorum in his hands and weighed it, estimating in his heart that it must weigh 5 or 6 jin. At market price, this could sell for at least a dozen yuan. A dozen yuan? Jianguo marveled. These days, take a farming household of 3 for example. Even if the husband and wife worked themselves to the bone in the fields for a whole month, the work points they earned would convert to at most 5 or 6 yuan. And now, all by himself, he had brought back a Polygonum multiflorum worth more than 10 yuan in a single night. His earlier idea had indeed been right. Rather than following a large group from the village to pick up those scattered little potatoes in the fields, it was better to put some thought into finding wild goods, which was far more worthwhile. Jianguo carefully placed the Polygonum multiflorum into the basket. Just as he reached out to lift it and leave, the hair all over his body suddenly stood on end. This was a biological instinct of alarm. He subconsciously tightened his grip on the torch in his hand and suddenly turned his head, only to see that in the grass not far away, a snake was flicking its forked tongue, with the front half of its body raised high, its pair of cold, shadowy eyes fixed on him. This is bad. How did I attract a snake over here? Jianguo's heart skipped a beat, inwardly cursing his luck as his hand holding the torch tightened a little more, not daring to move his feet lightly. The snake's whole body had a bluish-black sheen, and its head was a typical triangle shape. Although Jianguo had never raised snakes, he had heard the older generation say before, whenever a snake's head looks like this, there's an 80 or 90% chance it's highly venomous. His heart instantly went half cold. The village was dozens of li of mountain roads away from the county hospital, and you had to rely entirely on your own 2 legs to get there. If this snake really bit him, he would probably be dead before he could even make it to the hospital for anti-venom. Jianguo held his breath and carefully edged back a few steps, already planning his escape. But just as he was about to move, he saw that the venomous snake actually seemed to be backing off, its body shrinking backward a little. Jianguo froze for a moment. Then his gaze fell on the torch burning brightly in his hand, and his face immediately lit up with joy. Right. Snakes are afraid of fire and high heat. How could I have forgotten that? Come on then. If you dare, try coming over. Summoning his courage, Jianguo cursed at the snake and even deliberately thrust the torch a little farther forward. The snake was indeed forced back a bit more by the firelight and no longer dared move half a step forward. It just stared fixedly at him, but it had lost the earlier ferocity. The snake was probably feeling aggrieved too, having originally come out to hunt, only to be blocked by the torch in his hand, wanting to attack, but not daring to. Jianguo suddenly remembered there was a place in the county that bought snakes. Could this venomous snake be sold for money? The timid starve, the bold thrive. Jianguo gritted his teeth and steeled himself. I'm doing it. He first dumped all the FODI and potatoes from the basket onto the ground, then gripped the bottom of the basket tightly and slowly moved toward the venomous snake. Come on, I've got something tasty here. But although this venomous snake was afraid of fire, it wasn't stupid. At a glance, it could tell the man meant no good. With a flick of its tail, it turned and darted toward the deep mountains. Where do you think you're going? Jianguo's quick eyes and swift hands, honed from years of hunting, were no joke. With a flick of his wrist, he slapped the basket down over the snake in one swift motion. The snake thrashed and bared its fangs inside the basket, which looked like it was about to be overturned. Jianguo didn't dare touch it with his hands, afraid the venomous fangs might graze him. So he immediately took off his outer shirt, pressed the basket down hard through the fabric, then jabbed the torch several times through the gaps in the basket, striking the snake right on the head. Before long, the commotion inside the basket quieted down. The snake had been jabbed into a daze and stopped moving. Only then did Jianguo breathe a sigh of relief and wipe the sweat from his forehead. Hopefully it can be sold for a bit of money. Otherwise, the little bit of energy he had stored up from eating meat would have been wasted. Even though the snake had already been knocked unconscious, Jianguo still wasn't at ease, afraid the venomous snake might wake up and bite him when he wasn't paying attention. He raised the torch again and jabbed it a few more times through the gaps in the basket, not stopping until he was sure the snake wouldn't wake up for the next several hours. Then he crouched down and looked at the FOTI and potatoes on the ground, along with the venomous snake trapped under the basket. Feeling thoroughly reassured, this trip tonight really hadn't been for nothing. The haul was plentiful. He just didn't know how much this venomous snake could sell for. Jianguo didn't dare linger there any longer. Who knew whether there might be a second snake nearby? Right now, all he had in his hand was a torch, with no other weapon for self-defense. If he ran into a large wild animal, he wouldn't stand a chance. If he hadn't relied on the torch to keep the venomous snake in check just now, there was no telling whether he'd have made it out tonight in one piece. He secretly resolved that after he got back, he had to get something for self-defense. Whether it was a bow and arrow or something else, anything was better than nothing. By the time he headed home carrying the basket on his back and the snake in hand, the sky was already beginning to lighten, around 3 or 4 in the morning. When he got home, he didn't go into the bedroom to disturb Lu Shuyun. Instead, he found a thin quilt, curled up on the wooden bench by the entrance, and made do for the night. He had just spent the night digging up FOTI and fighting a venomous snake, and the exertion had been too much. Besides, this body was weak to begin with, had never practiced martial arts, and hadn't eaten much nutritious food to build itself up. It had long since reached its limit. It was only thanks to eating some pork cracklings this morning to replenish some fat that he had the strength to fight the venomous snake just now. Drowsily, Jianguo thought that first thing tomorrow morning, he would go to the county town, sell both the FOTI and the venomous snake, and then he sank into a deep sleep. At 6 or 7 the next morning, when Lu Shuyun woke up and saw Jianguo sleeping soundly on the wooden bench, her brows couldn't help but furrow. In another half-shirtchen, the villagers would be gathering in the fields to dig potatoes. Judging by how deeply Jianguo was sleeping, there was no way he'd wake up anytime soon. Sigh. Lu Shuyun let out a soft sigh. Although Jianguo still had the production work assigned by the village today, for now they could only wait until he woke up. While she took some time to go have a look around the potato field first and see whether she could pick up a few leftovers. Just then, the basket beside her suddenly made a noise, as if something inside had bumped against it. Lu Shuyun froze for a moment, then slowly edged closer to the basket, forcing herself to be brave. When she was still half a meter away, she finally saw clearly that what was trapped inside was actually a dark green venomous snake. Thump! The venomous snake slammed hard against the basket wall again. Lu Shuyun let out a terrified scream, her face turning deathly pale in an instant, and her body uncontrollably stumbled backward, landing right in the arms of the startled awake Jianguo. Like a frightened little rabbit, Lu Shuyun trembled all over as she pointed at the basket, her voice already tinged with tears. A snake. There's a snake inside. Her soft, fragrant body fell into his arms. Lu Shuyun's soft chest was still lightly brushing against him, and Jianguo's mind went blank in an instant. His earlier drowsiness vanished without a trace, leaving only a dazed haze. Wife, don't be afraid. Jianguo quickly steadied her and pointed at the basket. I caught this snake last night. There's a big rock weighing it down on top, so it can't get out. As he spoke, he naturally placed his hand on Lu Shuyun's waist, only feeling that the touch beneath his palm was silky and smooth, wonderfully pleasant to touch. You caught it? Still not noticing his little move, Lu Shuyun just asked blankly, what did you catch this thing for? To sell for money. Jianguo said with a grin. I heard there's a place in the county that buys snakes. I'll take it there to sell today and see how much I can get for it. Oh right, I had another harvest last night too. Look in the corner. He pointed at the fleece flower root placed on top of a pile of potatoes. Lu Shuyun looked in the direction Jianguo was pointing, looked at the pile of potatoes in the corner, and nodded. You really did dig up quite a few potatoes. I told you not to aim too high. Look at you. You said you were going hunting, but all you got was a venomous snake. From now on, You'd better just go with everyone else to the fields and pick potatoes. Getting through this winter first is what really matters. These potatoes can help us scrape by for another 2 or 3 days. This afternoon, after I finish the village production task, I'll go dig around in the fields too. The more we save up, the better. She had been born into a wealthy family, but had never come into contact with medicinal herbs. She hadn't seen clearly earlier, and now she didn't think much about it either, and actually mistook that fleece flower root for a big, ugly potato, dark and unappealing in appearance. Hearing this, Jianguo was stunned for a moment, then smiled helplessly. It seemed the value of this fleece flower root would only be something his wife could appreciate after it was sold for money. Do you want to sleep a little longer, or go dig potatoes now? Lu Xiaoyun asked again, already gripping the hoe in her hand. After thinking it over for a moment, Jianguo replied, I'll sleep a bit longer and go to the fields later. He didn't dare mention going into the city. Lu Xiaoyun's parents lived in the county town, and whenever he went there before, 9 times out of 10 it was to ask the old couple for money. If he couldn't borrow any, he'd think of ways to steal some instead. And a perfectly decent family fortune had been worn down by his antics into decline. He knew it perfectly well. If he said he was going into the city right now, Lu Xiaoyun would definitely blow up at him. So he could only use sleeping a bit longer as an excuse to fool her for the time being. All right, then I'll head to the fields first. Without thinking much of it, Lu Xiaoyun went out the door. As soon as she left, Jianguo climbed up from the bench, quickly tidied up the bedding, then turned and hurried toward the village committee. The moment he entered the yard, he saw an old man squatting by the wall loading a donkey cart, piled full to the brim with big potatoes, looking like they were about to be sent to the county town. Jianguo stepped forward and asked with a smile, Uncle Sun, this cart of potatoes, you're taking it to the grain depot, right? Sun Luan looked up, recognized him as Jianguo, the village's notorious loafer, and immediately frowned, alarm bells ringing in his heart, afraid he was here with designs on the potatoes. He waved the whip in his hand and drove him off irritably. Go, go, go. Stay away from my donkey cart. Instead of properly going to the fields to pick potatoes, what are you doing hanging around the village committee? As he spoke, he raised his whip as if to chase him away. But Jianguo didn't panic. He smiled, pulled out a small half pouch of tobacco leaves from his pocket, handed it to Sun Luan, and his tone softened somewhat. Uncle Sun, I need to go to the county town later too. If it's convenient, could you give me a ride for part of the way? Sun Luan took the tobacco leaves suspiciously and pinched open the mouth of the bag, picked up a little bit of the crumbs with his fingertips and brought it to his mouth to lick. His expression softened a little, and he nodded, agreeing to let him hitch a ride. But he still couldn't help asking, what are you going into town for? These past few days, everyone in the village has been in the fields scrambling to harvest grain and pick up potatoes, and you're not joining in, but running off to town? As soon as Sun Luan finished asking, he suddenly recalled Jianguo's glorious deeds from before, and his brows knitted again, his tone carrying a hint of sarcasm. Don't tell me you're going to the county town again to borrow money from your father-in-law and mother-in-law? Jianguo had just opened his mouth to deny it, when it suddenly occurred to him that this was 1960. If he rashly said he was going into town to sell wild game, wouldn't that be blatant speculation and profiteering? Although Sun Luan had a pretty good reputation in the village and didn't look like the kind of bad sort who liked to gossip, he had only met the old man a handful of times in total. Who knew whether the other party might turn around and let it slip? The words on Jianguo's lips changed, and he deliberately scratched his head, sighing helplessly. Uncle Luan, you really got it right. He slumped his shoulders, putting on a look of being at his wit's end. I really don't have the ability to make money, but I can't just go hungry, can I? So I can only shamelessly ask my wife's family to help us out a bit. They can't just ignore their own daughter's well-being. You brat, you've really done every bad thing you could possibly do. Sun Luan snorted coldly in annoyance. Too lazy to meddle in his family's affairs any further, he merely waved his hand. We're leaving in half an hour. Have you decided whether you want to ride or not? After I deliver the potatoes and head back, I reckon it won't be until evening that I'll get back to the village. Yes, yes. Jianguo quickly agreed, seizing the chance to say, just in time. I'll go home and get some local specialties to bring to my father-in-law and mother-in-law. Please wait for me a moment. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned and ran for home. After getting home, he first wrapped the cloth bundle containing the venomous snakes in 2 more layers to make sure it was tight and wouldn't leak, then carefully picked up the fleece flower root and tucked it into his clothes before hurrying to the village committee. Just as he reached the gate to the courtyard, he heard the crack of Sun Luan's whip as he urged the donkey on, and at last managed to get on the cart before departure. The donkey cart jolted along the dirt mountain road, but dozens of li were still hard to travel. And after swaying and bumping along for several hours, they finally entered the city gate. Though it was a county town, in times like these life in the city was not much better than in the countryside. Quite a few shops along the street were closed, with dust piled on the door panels, and the whole street gave off an air of desolation. In those days, life was hard for everyone. Jianguo cupped his hands towards son Luan. Uncle Luan, you go ahead and get busy. I'll head to my father-in-law and mother-in-law's place now. Son Luan didn't bother paying any more attention to this spendthrift. Carrying his whip, he drove the donkey cart toward the grain depot. Only after son Luan's figure had completely disappeared did Jianguo turn into an alley, twisting and turning until he arrived in front of an old pharmacy. He lifted the door curtain and went in, getting straight to the point. Shopkeeper, do you buy medicinal herbs here? Behind the counter sat an old man wearing reading glasses, who had originally thought he was a customer coming to get medicine. The moment he heard he had come to sell herbs, he immediately frowned. What are you selling? If it's just ordinary herbs, don't bother. I don't even have room to pile any more here. Polygonum multiflorum, do you buy it? Jianguo stepped a little closer. Polygonum multiflorum? The old man's eyes lit up, and he immediately came out from behind the counter, rubbing his hands as he asked, where is it? Quick, let me have a look. Jianguo untied the burlap sack he carried with him and handed over the fleece flower root together with its roots. The old man took it in his hands, weighed it twice, and clicked his tongue in amazement. Such a big fleece flower root. It couldn't possibly have grown like this without several decades. The more he looked, the more delighted he became. He raised his head and asked, how do you plan to sell it? Give me a price, and I'll hear it. Jianguo stood there with his arms folded. The old man's eyes shifted as he tested the waters. Right now, small fleece flower root sells for 1.2 yuan per gene. I'll add a bit more for you. How about 1.4? Jianguo immediately let out a cold laugh. Shopkeeper, do you take me for someone who doesn't know the trade, so you can just fool me? Small fleece flower root goes for that price, but mine is decades-old fleece flower root. If you offer 1.4, aren't you afraid of smashing your own signboard? Forget it, I'll go ask somewhere else. As he spoke, he started putting the fleece flower root back into the sack. Hey, young man, don't go. The old man grew anxious and, no longer caring about appearances, reached out to grab him. With a bitter smile he said, let's discuss it. Since you know quality goods, I'll give you a sincere price, 2.5 yuan per gene. You won't find a second shop in town offering this price. That's fair enough, right? As soon as Jianguo heard the price, he found it was about what he had estimated, so he nodded and replied, all right, we'll settle it at 2.5 yuan per gene. The old man hurriedly and carefully carried the fleece flower root to the steelyard behind the counter, squinting as he checked the markings. Just shy of 6 gene, I'll count it as 6 gene for you. As he spoke, he turned around and counted money out from the drawer behind the counter, pulling out 15 yuan and handing it over. Count it, 15 yuan. Jianguo took it and counted it once, and only after confirming the amount was correct did he tuck the money into his inner pocket. At this moment the old man came closer again, much warmer than when Jianguo had first walked in. Young man, if you get more good fleece flower root of this quality in the future, bring it to me again. I'll still buy it at this price. If you want to exchange it for grain coupons or cloth coupons, I can do that for you too. I guarantee you won't lose out. Jianguo nodded. All right. He was thinking to himself that he would often be going into the mountains in the future, and he would inevitably have to deal with these Chinese medicinal herbs. Being able to secure a steady sales channel really was a good thing. Then he suddenly remembered the venomous snake he still hadn't dealt with, and he spoke up again. By the way, shopkeeper, do you buy venomous snakes here? The old man froze for a moment, then asked in return, what species of venomous snake? I don't recognize it, so please take a look for me. Jianguo reached out and lifted the cloth covering the basket he had brought with him, revealing the dark green and black banded pit viper inside. The snake's body was still twitching slightly, its eyes fixed straight on the two of them, when it suddenly lunged at the edge of the basket. Oh my! The old man was so frightened he shrank back 2 steps, swallowed, and patted his chest. This beast is still so fierce. Jianguo seized the chance to press on. Shopkeeper, will you buy this snake? The old man lowered his head and pondered for a moment, then nodded. I can buy it. This is a pit viper. Pit vipers soaked in medicinal liquor are good stuff, and the snake skin can also be sold for money. I'll give you 5 yuan for one. What do you think? He wasn't lying about the price. Jianguo hadn't expected to make much from the snake anyway, and only treated it as a little extra, so he immediately agreed. All right, deal. After leaving the herb shop, Jianguo touched his inner pocket. 15 yuan from the fleece flower root, plus 5 yuan from the snake, 20 yuan in total. In an instant, He had gone from penniless to bourgeois. Having money in your pocket really does make you feel at ease. Du Jianguo couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The burden on him seemed to lighten by half. Although 20 yuan wasn't enough to completely pay off the family's debts, it was certainly enough to buy some grain. He looked up at the sky. The sun was still hanging halfway up, and he figured it would still be several more hours before Sun Luan came out of the grain depot. Du Jianguo simply turned around and headed for the supply and marketing cooperative. After entering, he went straight to the grain and oil section and first weighed out 3 jin of white flour and 3 jin of cornmeal. Then he went around to the condiment section and bought salt, soy sauce, and a small packet of Sichuan peppercorns. Thinking that the soap at home was almost used up, he casually picked up another bar. In the end, the total came to less than 5 yuan. With the remaining money and grain coupons tucked away, he carried the heavy things toward the door. He wanted to give Lu Xiaoyun a surprise when he got back. Walking down the street, a thought suddenly popped into Du Jianguo's mind. Should he go visit his father-in-law and mother-in-law? He immediately hesitated, by all rights. Now that he'd made some money this time, and considering how much the old couple had looked after him before, he ought to bring some gifts when visiting them. But when he thought of their last meeting, when he'd stolen his mother-in-law's gold ring and pawned it for gambling money, he lost his nerve again. If he went this time, his father-in-law would probably beat him out with a broom. But then on second thought, ever since being reborn, he still hadn't seen his own daughter. The moment he thought of that little girl who had only lived a few years in his previous life, Du Jianguo's heart softened and trembled. He had only this one daughter. No matter what, he had to see her. Forget it, forget it. If I get thrown out, then I get thrown out. I'm going to see my daughter. Gritting his teeth, he turned around and went back to the supply and marketing cooperative, where he picked out a little tiger toy made of cloth and bought 2 packets of milk candy and a small tin of malted milk, rare treats for children in those days. His father-in-law and mother-in-law lived at the west end of the city, not far from the grain station. His father-in-law, Lu Fu, had studied for a few years and was now a teacher at the county primary school. His mother-in-law worked at the neighborhood committee, and both of them had steady formal jobs. Logically speaking, no matter how tight things were, they shouldn't have gone hungry. But they just had the misfortune of ending up with such an unpromising son-in-law as him, who had wrecked what had once been a perfectly good household. When he reached the courtyard gate, he took a deep breath and raised his hand to knock on the wooden door. "Dad, Mom, are you home?" The front door slowly opened a crack, and the first thing to appear was a 3-year-old girl's eyes, dark as if soaked in ink. Tuanchuan stared blankly at Du Jianguo outside the door, confused, and for quite a while didn't react. After a few stunned seconds, she finally called out in a crisp little voice, "Daddy." Looking at his daughter, Du Jianguo's expression was complicated. In his previous life and this one, he didn't know how many times he had thought of this child. Such a tiny little girl, smart by nature, who had memorized all kinds of Tang poems and song lyrics at such a young age, sharp-tongued and clever, and should have had a bright future, yet was dragged down by him, her father. In the end, she was harmed so badly that she died along with her mother after eating poisoned dumplings. It was all because of the sins he had committed. "Yeah, it's Dad," Du Jianguo answered in a trembling voice, forcibly holding back the excitement in his heart, afraid of startling his daughter. In a coaxing manner, he passed the snacks in his hand through the crack in the door. "Have you been doing well staying at Grandma and Grandpa's house?" Tuanchuan nodded timidly, her voice soft and weak. "Yes. At Grandpa's house I can eat my fill, and I can learn to write too." Those words made Du Jianguo's heart tighten, and he forced out a smile. "When you come back to our home in the future, our home will have enough food too. From now on, when you study, Dad will teach you." Tuanchuan didn't dare respond. She only clutched the door curtain and said in a small voice, "Grandma and Grandpa, they won't let me stay with you." Du Jianguo felt awful inside. The old couple really were guarding against him as if he were a thief, not even allowing him to say a few words to his own daughter. Suppressing his bitterness, he asked, "Then where are your Grandma and Grandpa?" "We have guests at home. They're in the front room making tea and chatting." His father-in-law was a teacher with students everywhere, and it wasn't unusual for former students to come visit, so Du Jianguo didn't think much of it. "Come on, let's go see your Grandma and Grandpa." As Du Jianguo spoke, he started to walk inside, but Nin didn't move. She still stood stubbornly guard over that crack in the door, her little body tensed tight. "Daddy, Grandpa said you're not allowed in," Tuanchuan said timidly, but her words were clear. "He said you must be here to swindle money again, and told you to go back." Du Jianguo was instantly speechless and gave an awkward cough, then softened his tone. "Dad isn't here to swindle money. I'm here to bring things to your Grandma and Grandpa, to show filial respect to them." "Tuanchuan, So you want your grandma and grandpa, not your dad anymore. Is that it? Tuanshuan was still young and didn't have much of a mind of her own. When Du Jianguo darkened his face like that, her hand unconsciously moved away from the doorknob. She took 2 steps back, kicked off with her little legs, turned around, and ran toward the courtyard, shouting at the top of her lungs as she ran. Grandma, Grandpa, my dad came in. My dad came in. The elderly couple, who had been chatting merrily in the front hall, froze instantly when they heard their granddaughters shout. Old Master Lu Fu slammed the palm fan in his hand with a smack, his knuckles turning white, his chest heaving. That little punk still dares to come. The 20 yuan we lent him last time. Well, before he even made it home, he had already taken it straight to the casino and lost every last cent. He turned to look at his wife, his face full of anger. Old woman, we can't give him a single cent today. From now on, we'd rather travel dozens more miles and put the money into our daughter's hands ourselves than ever give it to this heartless bastard again. His wife also sighed and nodded heavily. Don't worry, he won't get a single cent. She then turned to the guest beside her. Dushing, just sit and have some tea first. We old folks will go see what tricks this brat is up to again. Zhang Dishing put down his teacup and smiled faintly, saying calmly, Uncle, Auntie, don't worry. With me here today, I guarantee this Du Jianguo won't gain the slightest advantage here. After saying that, he couldn't help frowning again. Really, how did Xiaoyun end up marrying someone like him back then? Sigh, what a tragedy. That child was muddle-headed at the time too. Saying Du Jianguo had saved her life back then, but I've always felt there was something fishy about it. Lu Fu shook his head. While they were talking, Du Jianguo had already lifted the door curtain and walked into the front hall. When he saw the elderly couple, he immediately smiled and said, Dad, Mom, I've come to show filial respect to you two. I bought you some things. Take a look later yourselves. There's even a piece of cured meat in there. But the next second, Du Jianguo's gaze swept over to the cold-faced Zhang Dushing beside them, and he froze at once. Zhang Dushing? What are you doing here? I've come to visit Uncle and Auntie. Is there a problem? Zhang Dushing spoke indifferently, with a trace of arrogance in his eyes, as if he didn't even want to look at Du Jianguo. Seeing him act like that, a wave of disgust instantly surged in Du Jianguo's heart. How could he not recognize Zhang Dushing? This man was his wife Lu Xiaoyun's childhood sweetheart, and in terms of family ties, they were also distantly related by blood. By seniority, he counted as Lu Xiaoyun's distant older male cousin. But this guy was no decent person. He was extremely lustful. Ever since he married Lu Xiaoyun, Zhang Dushing's eyes had never behaved, always wandering over Lu Xiaoyun. Not only that, he repeatedly schemed to find ways to snatch Lu Xiaoyun away from him. To gain an advantage by being nearby, he even deliberately applied for a resident village cadre post and forcibly moved into their village. But Du Jianguo happened to be wary of Zhang Dushing's status, so even after being bullied by him again and again before, he didn't dare fight back. Now, when enemies met face to face, he suppressed the anger in his heart, stared coldly at Zhang Dushing, and said, With the little bit of blood relation you have with my father-in-law and mother-in-law, it's probably weaker than tea that's been steeped several times, isn't it? What? Did you suddenly remember to come visit the old couple today? Zhang Dushing merely shot Du Jianguo a cold glance, his tone full of disdain. I can't be bothered to argue with a rustic country bumpkin like you. At the side, his father-in-law Lu Fu immediately frowned deeply and cursed at Du Jianguo. Dushing came to see us old folks out of kindness. Who are you to make irresponsible remarks here? Every word was full of dissatisfaction toward Du Jianguo. He paused, then said in a heavier tone, Let me tell you, Dushing came today because he's going to Shaoansan village to serve as the resident village cadre. From now on, he'll be your leader. Shouldn't you take this chance today to get on good terms with Dushing? Get on good terms, my ass. It's already his good luck that I didn't smash him to death with a stick. Du Jianguo sneered inwardly. This Zhang had long had designs on Xiaoyun, and now he was using his status as a resident village cadre to worm his way in. What a nice little scheme he had. Did he really think Du Jianguo was an idiot? Zhang Dushing pretentiously adjusted the glasses on his nose bridge and sneered. This time I'm going to Shaoansan village as a resident village cadre, first to solve the village's food problem, and second, to save Sister Xiaoyun from a sea of misery. He paused, the superiority in his tone growing even stronger, as he looked at Du Jianguo as though he were looking at someone beneath him. Du Jianguo, if you still have even a shred of decency, then divorce Sister Xiaoyun as soon as possible and stop dragging her down. She's simply not someone a bumpkin like you could ever hope for. She should be like me and live a good life in the city from now on. Sure enough, this old bastard really was after exactly that. Damn it, he's even set his sights on my wife. Du Jianguo curled his lips into a cold smile and deliberately drawled. Thanks a lot for your concern, cousin. My wife and I are doing just fine, so how is it a sea of misery? Besides, what's wrong with the village? You can still eat meat in the village too. It's no worse than the city. I am the resident village cadre about to arrive in your Shaoan village. Do you think I don't know what your Shaoan village is like? Eat meat? In the whole county, your Shaoan village is the poorest. Zhang Duxing let out a scornful laugh. I already asked uncle and auntie before. You're nothing but an out-and-out hoodlum in Shaoan village. Gambling, whoring, and shamelessly borrowing money from your father-in-law and mother-in-law every day. Sister Xiaoyun married a man like you. I'm embarrassed for her. As he spoke, he even deliberately put on a disgusted expression and raised his hand to pat his own face. Du Jianguo sneered. What, cousin? Are you jealous? Even if I'm like this, my wife and I still get along great. We're all over each other in bed every day, can barely get out of bed every day. Does that piss you off? You. Those words hit Zhang Duxing right where it hurt. He regarded Lu Xiaoyun as the woman of his dreams, yet she was being ravished by Du Jianguo. How dare he defile Sister Xiaoyun, whom he treasured in his heart, like this? Zhang Duxing clenched his fists, wishing he could smash a punch into Du Jianguo's forehead, but from the corner of his eye he caught sight of Lu Fu and his wife beside him, and forcibly suppressed his anger. He didn't dare let them see those feelings he had for Lu Xiaoyun. Lu Fu, standing to the side, suddenly coughed twice and, frowning, vented his anger at Du Jianguo. Enough. Stop stirring up trouble here. Tell me, what exactly did you come to my house for? Let me make this clear. You won't borrow a single cent today. The more he spoke, the angrier he got, pointing at Du Jianguo's nose as he cursed. Damn it. Can't you spare your wife and child a little worry? And stop taking money to gamble. Du Jianguo gave a bitter smile. Dad, I'm really not here to borrow money. Then what are you here for? Lu Fu suddenly seemed to realize something, and his tone instantly turned hard. Could it be because of your daughter Tuan Tuan? Let me warn you, Du Jianguo. If you dare get any crooked ideas and sell Tuan Tuan to human traffickers, I'll chop off your damned head with a kitchen knife on the spot. The moment those words left his mouth, Tuan Tuan, who had been hiding to one side, shrank in fright, quickly turned and burrowed behind Lu Fu, her little hand clutching tightly at her grandpa's clothes as she stared timidly at Du Jianguo, afraid he might really come over and carry her away. Du Jianguo felt a pain in his heart as if pricked by needles. It was all the evil he had done in his previous life. In the past, he either beat or berated Xiaoyun and her daughter, and had done a basketful of absurd things. Worst of all, he had actually entertained the thought of selling Tuanshuan to a family in the same village looking to take in a child bride in exchange for money. If Lu Fu and his wife hadn't discovered it in time, and taken the child into the city overnight to protect her, this muddle-headed father would have ruined his daughter's whole life long ago. Du Jianguo set the bottles and jars in his hands on the ground, then gave Lu Fu and his wife a deep bow. Dad, Mom, I know you must still doubt me now and think I'm up to tricks again to swindle money, but this time I'm serious. The gifts have been delivered, so I won't stay long today. Once I make a lot of money, I'll definitely fulfill my duty as a son-in-law and bring Xiaoyun to visit you. Du Jianguo's speech left Lu Fu and his wife somewhat stunned. It was the first time they had ever heard this good-for-nothing speak like this, and it felt strange. Lu Fu frowned and called out to stop Du Jianguo. Wait, what's all in this bag of yours? They're all gifts bought from the supply and marketing cooperative, plus toys for Tuanshuan. You two elders can sort them out later. This whole big bag. Lu Fu's face was full of disbelief. Judging by the size alone, these gifts must have cost quite a bit of money. His suspicion deepened, and he pressed. Where did you get so much money? Don't tell me you went and extorted Xiaoyun for money again. I earned this money hunting in the mountains. It has nothing to do with Xiaoyun, Du Jianguo said. You know how to hunt now? Lu Fu looked him up and down, the corners of his mouth full of mockery. Don't make me laugh. With your meager skills, you used to lose half your wits just running into a pheasant in the mountains, and now you dare say you've hunted game? Seeing that his father-in-law simply didn't believe him, he didn't argue further. He only bowed again, then crouched down and softly instructed Tuanshuan. Daughter, be good and listen to your grandma and grandpa here. And when Dad earns a bit more money, I'll come take you home. After saying that, he straightened up, turned his head, and walked out the door, never looking at Zhang Duxing again the whole time. But Zhang Duxing's eyes were darting rapidly in their sockets, and that shifty look on his face made it obvious he was secretly plotting some disgraceful scheme. Hunting in the mountains? He had been worrying about how to deal with Du Jianguo, and now the kid had delivered himself right to his door. Although in these times it was perfectly normal for poor people to catch a little wild game to scrape out a living, This sort of thing could be treated as big or small. If someone with ulterior motives got hold of it, there would be bitter consequences to bear. If they insisted on calling it speculation and profiteering, no one would dare object. And unfortunately, he, Zhang Disheng, was exactly that kind of person. Du Jianguo, oh Du Jianguo, just wait and see how I'll put you in your place once I get back to the village. I'll make you personally deliver Lu Xiuyun right into my hands. Zhang Disheng was overjoyed and no longer wanted to stay at Lu Fu's house to foster any kind of relationship. He immediately went back to prepare the things he needed to take up his post in Shaoan village. After all the commotion and several hours of fussing about, by the time Du Jianguo came out from his father-in-law's house, it was nearly dusk. He didn't dare delay and hurried toward the entrance of the grain depot. From afar he saw old Sun squatting on the ground, a cigarette pinched in his hand, with several cigarette butts already scattered by his feet, clearly having grown impatient from waiting. I thought you brat had gone off whoring again. I was just about to stop waiting for you and head back. When old Sun saw him, he stood up with a frown and lightly flicked the whip in his hand toward the horse cart. Why aren't you hurrying up? In a little while it'll be completely dark, and who knows what mosquitoes the size of ox heads might come flying out on the road. You're not afraid of having your blood sucked, but I still want to live a few more years. Du Jianguo hurried forward, smiling apologetically as he apologized, while rummaging through the things he had bought and pulling out a pack of mung bean cakes, which he handed to old man Sun. Sorry for keeping you waiting so long, sir. Please have a taste of this. Old man Sun had sharp eyes. When he saw it was mung bean cakes, his expression instantly softened. Smiling, he took the pastries and tucked them into his coat, waving his hand. No problem, no problem. It was just a little delay, what's the big deal? Even if we really had to travel at night, it wouldn't be such a big deal. This old man really is fickle, Du Jianguo muttered to himself, but said nothing more and climbed onto the mule cart after him. The two rode the cart, swaying leisurely back toward the village. When they finally reached the village entrance, Du Jianguo jumped down carrying the remaining things. His steps much lighter as he hurried all the way toward his home. He could already hardly wait to imagine the delight on his wife's face when she saw the things he had brought back. Just as Du Jianguo pushed open the door to his home, with a sharp smack, his cheek was struck solidly by a slap. Covering his face, he stood there stunned, full of shock. Before coming back, he had still hoped that bringing these gifts home would ease his wife Lu Xiuyun's anger a little, or at least keep her from dwelling on the poisoned dumplings. Who would have expected this kind of treatment instead? Wife, why are you hitting me? Du Jianguo asked in confusion, rubbing his burning face. Why am I hitting you? Lu Xiuyun trembled all over, glaring at him viciously, her chest heaving violently. Earlier, I ran into Sun Luan's wife. He told me everything. You didn't go work in the fields at all today. You borrowed Sun Luan's donkey cart and snuck into town. Did you go to mooch off my parents again? I did go, but listen to my explanation. Du Jianguo tried to defend himself, but was interrupted. Listen to what you have to say. Lu Xiuyun suddenly let down her hair and grabbed the kitchen knife from the stove. Du Jianguo's heart leaped straight to his throat, but she didn't slash at him. Instead, she held the knife to her own neck. Wife, don't be impulsive. Put the knife down. If there's something to say, let's talk it out properly. Don't hurt yourself. Du Jianguo anxiously edged half a step forward, but afraid of pushing her too far, he could only freeze in place and keep persuading her. Tears rolled from Lu Xiuyun's eyes, her voice pleading. I'm begging you, Du Jianguo, stop harming my parents. You can mistreat me, beat me, scold me. I accept it. This is just my fate in this life. But don't drag my family down with me. Only then did Du Jianguo realize she had misunderstood. He quickly raised his hand and swore solemnly. I swear to heaven, this time when I went to my parents-in-law's house, it was purely to bring gifts and show filial respect. I didn't ask for a single cent. You think I'm stupid? Lu Xiuyun still didn't believe him. Pointing at the things in his hands and the 2 chi of new cloth, her voice trembling, she said, could these have been picked up on the road? I earned this myself. Du Jianguo hurriedly explained. The fleece flower root I dug up last night, and that venomous snake that frightened you. I sold them all to Hechentang. If you don't believe me, I'll take you to ask the apothecary owner tomorrow. Fleece flower root. What's that? Lu Xiuyun frowned tightly. Though she had gone to school, she didn't understand Chinese herbal medicine, and she still didn't put down the kitchen knife. It's Chinese medicine, and that medicine is very expensive. Du Jianguo pointed at the pile of potatoes in the corner. Remember that big potato-like thing I dug up yesterday? That was it. As he spoke, he hastily pulled the folded 12 yuan from his pocket and handed it over. Look, this is the money that's left. If I had gone to cheat my parents for money, with my old habits I'd have lost it at the gambling house long ago. How could I still have kept it? Lu Xiaoyun stared at the money in a daze, remembering that black potato-like thing from yesterday. It did seem there had been such a thing, and today it was gone. When she saw that 10 yuan note, her eyes instantly widened. Teach this. It really sold for that much money. Suddenly, she seemed to think of something. She quickly stuffed the money into her pocket and looked at Du Jianguo warily, afraid he would take it to gamble again. Du Jianguo gave a bitter smile. You believe me now, right? I even bought new fabric for our daughter. Look. He pulled out the new fabric and handed it over, his tone full of guilt. Earlier, I wasted the cloth coupon for making our daughter new clothes for the new year. This time, after earning some money, I bought the fabric first. It's enough to make 2 outfits. After the autumn harvest is over, make one for Tuanshuan and one for yourself. I remember it's been a long time since you wore new clothes. Lu Xiaoyun's hand trembled as she held the fabric, her eyes reddening. And tears of grievance almost fell. She had long given up any hope of wearing new clothes, yet she never expected this useless man to really bring her new fabric. Is this really the same Du Jianguo, that old gambler? Wife, you're not angry anymore. Du Jianguo asked tentatively. Lu Xiaoyun took a deep breath and forced back her tears, though her tone remained cold. Don't think a piece of fabric can repay all the debts from before. I know. From now on, I'll treat you and the child well for the rest of my life. Du Jianguo nodded like a pecking chick. This time Lu Xiaoyun didn't mock him and silently put everything away into the cabinet beside the stove. She opened the bundle Du Jianguo had brought back and immediately saw the snowy white flour inside. There was several jin of it, plus the cornmeal beside it, with even grains and not the slightest bit of grit, far better than what they bought at the village grain station. Did Du Jianguo really earn all this himself? Holding the bag in her hands, she still felt dizzy, as if even the days ahead of her seemed a little unreal. Not daring to be careless, she first carefully hid the grain in the innermost part of the cellar, the most concealed place in the house, where even thieves couldn't find it. Then she remembered the 12 or 13 yuan Du Jianguo had handed over, and had intended to put it in the cellar as well, but just as her hand reached halfway, she drew it back again. What if Du Jianguo secretly took it away and gambled it off? It was safest to keep it on her person. Lu Xiaoyun muttered to herself, then after thinking it over, simply stuffed the money into the inner pocket of her undergarment, pressing it tightly against her belly. This entire scene fell into Du Jianguo's eyes, and as he watched his wife hopping around the room like a rabbit, digging holes everywhere, he couldn't help finding it amusing. But when he saw Lu Xiaoyun take off her outer garment and lower her head to tuck the money into her doo-doo, Du Jianguo instantly held his breath, his eyes going wide. The dim yellow lamplight fell on Lu Xiaoyun's fair skin, casting a soft, alluring glow that made him unable to look away. The next second, he clearly felt his heartbeat quicken and his blood surge. He couldn't help cursing inwardly. He's lived to such an age, and he still is unable to keep his cool as some green youth. But the more he cursed himself, the more his gaze seemed glued to Lu Xiaoyun, unable to move away. He had originally planned it all out well. First, little by little, ease the tension with his wife. And once she had completely calmed down and no longer resented the past, then slowly think about sleeping together. But right now, the heat all over his body was like rising fire, spreading from his chest to his limbs. And what little reason he had left was already scattered by desire. Du Jianguo felt he was about to lose control. Damn it, what am I thinking? This is my own wife, it's not against the law. So why wait for all that propriety? Du Jianguo cursed fiercely in his heart, swallowed, and gritted his teeth as he made up his mind. Du Jianguo quietly walked over and wrapped Lu Xiaoyun in his arms. What are you doing? Lu Xiaoyun was shocked. She was wearing only a doo-doo, unable to conceal the springtime beauty of her chest, her figure soft as water, and her hair still carried the fresh scent of soap. Du Jianguo's breathing grew more hurried. Wife, don't touch me, don't touch me. Lu Xiaoyun struggled hard, her voice full of panic. The next second, she saw Du Jianguo fumbling to undo his own pants. Her instinct was to shrink back into the corner of the Kong, but a thought suddenly flashed through her mind. Du Jianguo had only just started to improve a little. If she rejected him outright, would it push him back to his old gambling addict self? She didn't dare make that gamble. Forget it. Marry a chicken, follow the chicken. Marry a dog, follow the dog. Lu Xiaoyun closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, only helplessness remained in them. Looking at Du Jianguo's impatient state, she said in a trembling voice, softly, later, be gentler. Du Jianguo paused, then nodded heavily. The night grew deep and quiet. In those days without electric lights and with few entertainments, people didn't have many ways to pass the loneliness, and stretching exercises were considered one of the most common. Ordinary villagers would usually tire out after only a short while of stretching exercises. But the commotion in Du Jianguo's thatched hut lasted quite a bit longer. No one knew how many rounds the two of them went through, until Du Jianguo was completely exhausted. And only then had he finally vented all the pent-up resentment of bachelorhood he had bottled up over the years. When he opened his eyes again, the sun was already high in the sky. The weariness throughout his body had completely vanished, and he only felt refreshed and invigorated, even his breathing easy and smooth. Now this is what living is all about. There's nothing to complain about when it comes to quality of life. Du Jianguo felt delighted inside and stretched lazily, and at a glance saw his wife Lu Xiuyun drying corn in the yard. Barefoot, he jumped off the bed and ran a few steps behind Lu Xiuyun, reaching out to wrap her tightly in his arms. Wife, but what greeted him was a cold glare from Lu Xiuyun. Was last night still not enough for you? She reached out and pushed his arm away. Is this all you ever think about all day long? Du Jianguo, don't think that just because you brought back a little over 10 yuan, you can start acting like the boss. Du Jianguo's heart skipped a beat, and he sobered up instantly. He really had gotten carried away just now. Although Lu Xiuyun hadn't refused to sleep with him last night, that absolutely didn't mean she had completely forgiven what happened in the past. If he lost his sense of limits again and truly angered her, there was no telling if she might do something foolish like try to take her own life again. I'm going to get busy, wife. He hurriedly let go, took 2 steps back, and tactfully moved aside. But as he turned around, Lu Xiuyun inadvertently glanced back at him and quietly let out a sigh of relief. Last night had truly frightened her. Du Jianguo had been like a wild bull off its reins. So vigorous it was frightening. She had never seen him so full of energy before, and he had tossed her about so much that she hadn't slept well all night. When Du Jianguo suddenly hugged her just now, she had really been afraid this beast of a man was going to torment her again. Fortunately, he still had enough sense and didn't continue. Du Jianguo was just thinking about going to the back hill to look for medicinal herbs again, while Lu Xiuyun was turning over the assorted grains from the autumn harvest in the yard to dry. The two were each busy with their own work. Suddenly, a loud knocking came from outside the courtyard gate, mixed with urgent shouts. Is Du Jianguo there? Is he there? Du Jianguo froze for a moment, then put down the sickle in his hand and quickly went to open the door. When he pulled the door open, he saw an old man standing outside wearing a blue cloth cap and a faded green military coat, none other than the village chief of Shaoan village, and also the father of his gambling buddy Lu Chunin. Village chief, what brings you here? Du Jianguo quickly stepped aside to let him in.